The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Ashley Koff-RD's webinar, Adapt Better with Better Adaptogen Nutrition, in collaboration with REBBL. We're very excited to have Palo Hawken, the co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer of REBBL, joining us today to share his knowledge and expertise. There will be a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so please send me any questions you might have in the chat box, and Ashley and Palo will answer them. Lastly, this webinar will be up on Ashley's YouTube and website next week if you would like to have access to it again. So let's get this started. Over to you, Ashley.
Thank you. This is an awesome webinar. I'm so excited about it for a number of different reasons. But one of the reasons that I get really excited about the webinar forum is that we're able to dive into topics in a little greater detail. And I think when we're talking about something like adaptogens, that it is so important to be able to spend the time to talk about them so that we can really understand their value, because they are getting a lot of attention. But all of that being said, I could sum up in like 2 seconds what an adaptogen is, and really in what we all want to get, right? We want the ability for our body to adapt better. We don't want to tell our body like, hey, you need to just do this, or, you know, go from point A to point B. It's like, hey, why don't we let our own bodies adapt? And that really speaks to the individuality and the personalization that has been really at the core of my practice and my passion for nutrition from the get-go. So while we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this and answer your questions, I think one of the key things to understand is that from an adaptation standpoint, what this really is about being able to personalize our medicine, personalize our nutrition, so that we are giving our particular bodies what it needs to and what they need to be able to work better. So as Matt was mentioning, we've got Palo Hawken today. This is going to be really fun to be able to talk to him about not just the work that he's doing right now with REBBL, but also in a larger scope, what REBBL as a brand is helping the world adapt better to, but also where he's come from. And I think you'll find his story really interesting. And as always, I would love to thank my partners. I don't get to do what I get to do without them. And in their own ways, their foods and their supplemental nutrition are so critical to helping support the body and give the body the resources that it needs to adapt better. So as you know, if you've listened to really anything that I've ever talked about, I'm always talking about hemp. I'm always talking about magnesium. I'm talking today a lot about true detoxification. And I always talk about organic being so simple, making it I like things to be really simple for us to do. So in that vein, we've got Manitoba Harvest, who make incredible hemp foods, and really one of the great things for me from my partnership with them is they're just such a leadership role in the hemp foods education and supporting farmers, and a lot of great stuff in there. But at the core, what we're talking about there is from a plant and a seed getting, you know, better fats, getting better proteins, making sure we're getting in fiber, making sure we can nutrient balance, and all of this happening deliciously. As you know, better nutrition, better be delicious. Natural vitality, there are calm enablers. You know, we've got our magnesium and that balance of magnesium and calcium, and really looking at it in highly bioavailable forms. They've got my calm bath, my calm cream. My whole house feels more calm when I have my calm. So it's very good in that way. And then TrueBroc is the glucoraphanin ingredient. It's a clinical dose of glucoraphanin, which helps to enable phase 2 detoxification. And if that gets you confused or stressed, then you should definitely check out in the membership some of the detoxification evaluations, and certainly my webinar on detoxification, as well as make it super simple. You can have a tea that has TrueBroc in it, you can have coffee, and also some of the supplements that I recommend have TrueBroc in it. And Nature's Path has been along on my path with me for quite some time, really helping educate me about the benefits of organic, and then together we have partnered to help everyone understand how better nutrition really is organic, and vice versa. Organic is better nutrition, because at the end of the day, we just want to put less in us that can be irritating or frustrating to our body, and that's really what Nature's Path offers in its range of delicious products. So without further ado, we're going to talk now about what do we all want, what do we need, how can we get it, and then really how can we keep it, and we're going to talk to Palo there, and then of course there'll be a Q&A, so please include your questions, send them over to Matt, and he will make sure that I answer them. So what do we all really want? You know, I'm very, very clear that we do not all want better nutrition. I get it. You know, if I ask a room, I sometimes do it as a trick question. I'll say, what do we want? And then somebody will be like, oh, better nutrition. And it's like, we don't want better nutrition. We want the results. Today we want results. We want better health. And the reason we want the better health is, first of all, we want to be able to act and do in our lives what we know that better health offers us. It allows us to do what we want to do. And we do know that better nutrition fuels better health. However, if we are just talking about better nutrition and we're not getting better health, there's a big problem, right? And so one of the key things that I see so much today in my office, or I hear from so many of you, is that you are really trying to get better nutrition, and you're trying to be active better and to, you know, even meditate and do all of these things, but you feel like you're not getting that better health. So when I ask the question, like, how are we going to get it? You know, there are all sorts of, first of all, people look frustrated or confused, or I see like a wistfulness or even a feeling of failure. I see it all across spaces across the country. And then people kind of throw back to me like paleo, vegan, juices. But what we're going to talk about today is it's none of these things in isolation. And sometimes it may not be any of those at all. There's another part of what do we want. Sure, we want, you know, we want what's good for us. We, you know, actually, you know, we love to lift weights, or we eat our carrot, or we make our juice, and we want to be good, but we also want to be bad. You know, we want to do the things. We want stuff that may taste great. I actually don't think there's anything bad about that. But we might want to be lazy sometimes, or we may want to, you know, just turn around and be like, come on, do I have to do all this stuff that I'm hearing about in order to get better health? And we'll address that today. So the key thing is, in order to get better health, I was mentioning before that better health, it's fueled by better nutrition. And better nutrition is what goes in and on you most often. So going back to the slide before, we can be this, but we got to do this a little bit more often. We got to do the good a little bit more often, because when you put better things into your body and on your body, they enable better health. And if we put things into our body that are highly refined, processed, made from chemicals, you know, certainly things that are exposed to toxins or that are, you know, harmful to our bodies, they're going to deduct from our health. But remember, it's about being better, not perfect, more often. So I think one of the things, it's 2017, like perfect, there's no perfect. There's no perfect health, there's no perfect diet, there's no perfect nutrition. But what we do know is there's better. And the great part is we know what better nutrition is and isn't. I'll get into that in a moment. And the even better part about better is that when we do better not, and when we make better not perfect choices more often, we actually do get results. And the thing that gets me up and has me at work every single day is that I know that there are millions of Americans that are investing in their better health. They're investing time, money, energy, emotional resources. They're making lifestyle choices because they are trying to get and keep better health. And if they're not getting better results, if you're not getting better results, we have to tune up what we're offering. We have to get you to being able to make better, not perfect choices more often. And that's what fuels me. So to that end, I think it's really important for us to know what better nutrition is and isn't. Number one, and we're going to be talking to Palo quite a bit about this, better nutrition better be delicious. And there's a big part of that you're like, yeah, of course, because if it's not delicious, we're not going to want to have it. You know, we might be able to do it for 6 months. You know, some of us might only be able to do it for 3 days, and I applaud you. I don't want you consuming a bunch of stuff that is quote unquote healthy that doesn't taste great. Better nutrition better be delicious so that it keeps us coming back for more better, not perfect choices. However, there's another reason that better nutrition better be delicious, and that is that our taste buds are part of our overall sensory experience. And if it's not delicious, you better believe we are going to go around finding other things that are delicious. We want the delicious. And so what our choices need to be better. Our better nutrition choices need to be delicious, because otherwise we're just going to run around trying to find something later that is delicious. And I know that's happened to you. It has certainly happened to me. Okay. I've mentioned this, better not perfect choices more often. Let's stop shooting for perfect. Perfect doesn't happen, but better not perfect choices more often does need to happen. And that's, I think, a really important one, which is, I often tell my clients to check in with me, or I'll say to someone, hey, I want to see the stuff that you're doing that doesn't make it onto Instagram. Because if it doesn't look pretty, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, half the stuff, actually 3/4 of the stuff that I have probably wouldn't qualify for somebody's Instagram page. I'm really comfortable with showing my better not perfect or my very imperfect photography. But I think in that way, we're in this space where we're trying to make things too perfect, but we do need to make sure that we're having better not perfect choices more often. And better nutrition better be doable in your life today. If it's doable in my life, I've known this as a practitioner really from day one, but it's proven out over the last 20 years. You can ask me what I had for breakfast or how I make something work in my life, and you might get a strategy or a tip or an idea, but it doesn't matter if it's doable in my life. It needs to be doable in your life, and that's one of the things we have to talk about. So, if I give you recipes to make, but you don't cook, that's not going to be helpful. If you're on the go all the time, I need to meet you on the go with something that is better nutrition that also better be delicious, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. And better nutrition better be based on where you're at today. So yes, it needs to fit into your life today, but it also needs to meet you where you're at. And what I mean by that is actually where you're at health-wise today. So, if you were a kid and as a child you loved to drink milk, or you loved eating a yogurt, or you had a bowl of ice cream, and now you're a lactose intolerant adult, you can't have what you had as a kid. I mean, you can. It's just going to be probably a pretty tough bellyache, right? So we need to make changes based on, and we need to really focus in on recommendations. Our better nutrition recommendations need to be where you're at today. And they also better fit within your budget. It's not going to be fair for me to tell you to, go have a $10 latte every day and say, ooh, because you should only have that. That's the better one for you. I got to be able to come up with $1 or $2 option for you to do. Now, that might mean that I'm having you do it at home and not when you're out more often, because that's how we budget. But it is important for us to be thinking about your budget. And another thing that we'll talk about today is also the idea of taking something that might be a higher priced option sometimes, but splitting it up and making it fit into your budget that way, and still getting the advantages of better nutrition. And then there's the 4 pillars that are at the core of better nutrition. Has to be better quality, better not perfect, but better quality. And that really goes to, your body needs to be able to recognize it. We do need to pay attention to quantity. This isn't about portion control and somebody externally telling you how much you should eat. It is about recognizing that your body only has a certain amount of space for the nutrition that it's taking in at any one time. It's like a gas tank. And if you overfill that gas tank, it's dangerous, it's wasteful, and it really doesn't have any beneficial outcomes. So what we need to do is we need to have the appropriate amount, not thinking about it as we're controlling the amounts from a portion control standpoint, which sometimes makes us a little bit more frustrated or more angst. And then also the idea of better nutrient balance. This is going to be really important when we look at liquid nutrition, when we talk about smoothies, when we talk about juices, because we do need carbohydrate. We definitely need proteins. We need healthy fats, and we definitely need all of our non-starchy vegetables. We want a balance there. That's going to be so critical. And then it also means better frequency. I like to remind us that our bodies are designed more like race cars than street cars, so you want to be pit stopping more often. Okay. So one of the things that I've been doing for the thing that I've been doing for the last almost 20 years of working with patients, and even before this, before I knew that I was going to be doing this as a career, and before I knew even what better nutrition was and any of these pieces, this is what I ended up doing for myself, and this is what works. So I want to take you through the AKA method, because as we talk about adaptogens in a moment, think it's going to be really important for you to understand why they're so pivotal to better nutrition, because they really help enable us in this methodology. So the first thing you have to do is you have to assess where you're at. I was talking about that a moment ago, but no recommendation and we can't pick where we're going to go. We can't even create a roadmap if we don't know where we're at. And so it's going to be so important. A lot of diets and programs out there just turn around and say, okay, start here. But you're not just born, you've been existing, and we need to know what your existence has been like for your body and where you are today before we can figure out where you're going. Another really important distinction between a lot of programs that are out there and a lot of what's not better in the world of nutrition is they treat you like you're a total health hot mess, like everything you've been doing must be totally wrong. Or even if they don't overtly say that, they're not asking you to identify what is actually working. What are you already doing better? And I actually start with that. When I have a patient come into my office, or if you're working with me through my membership, the first things that I'm evaluating, I want to know what you're already doing that's working. If you are already making time for a protein drink in the morning, or you like to make, you get out of bed and you have your water before your coffee, or you 3 times a week you're exercising, or the time that you lost weight, you did it because you did X, Y, and Z. Those are the things I want to know, because when we know what you're already doing better, first of all, why would we change those? It's like, don't fix what ain't broke. But second of all, we actually can have more insight into what you need to do and how you can do what you need to do, how you can, and this gets me to my last one, act better, not perfect, more often. And so that's the methodology that I want you to be thinking about as you start to think about how are you going to be making choices that are going to help your body adapt better. In order to know how your body can adapt better, first of all, we need to know where you are. Second of all, we need to know what is better. And third, then we take the adapt better, which is actually the verb, which is the action that we're going to take. And I'm going to take you through some great actions for adapting better as we get into this now. So we're going to adapt. We're going to act better, not perfect, more often. And today, the vehicle for doing that we're going to focus on is adapting better. That's a tongue twister, adapt better. So how can we get that better health, that better nutrition that will deliver us the better health? Well, in the world of medicine today, a lot of times we think about taking a medication for a symptom. So if I have acid reflux, I'm going to take a medication that turns off that acid. If I have a headache, I'm going to take a medication that stops that headache. If I have stress, I'm going to try to take something or maybe do something that stops that stress. But the reality is our bodies don't work that way. And way, way, way back in the day, our medicines actually didn't work that way. Our medicines were things like herbs, like roots. You see they used to grind things up and they would make them into teas and soups, and they would even make them into creams and things that they applied to the skin. And what they were doing there, primarily with plants, is that they were giving the body things that would go in and help the body call up the proper resources so that it could get back to a better balance. The body never achieves balance, but it's always striving to be in a better balance. And so that is at the core of understanding how we can adapt better. Because at the end of the day, when you take something that is not right now working well, in order to get better, yes, we could certainly stop something, right? We can turn off, and sometimes we have to. Sometimes with a medication, we have to say, okay, we have to stop that from happening right now. But when we're not in that time period where we absolutely have to do that chronic or that acute moment where we have to use that medication, what we can be doing from more of a preventative health standpoint is actually encouraging our body to adapt better. To basically say, right now, okay, let me audit, let me assess, all right now I don't feel as good as I could. Maybe I'm more stressed. Maybe I'm low energy. Maybe my I feel like I'm burnt. I'm really worn out, like, that deep worn out that even sleep, I feel like I could sleep for ages and it wouldn't help me. These kinds of things, when they're happening, what we can do is suddenly turn around and say, hey, body, I bet if I gave you what you needed, you could actually resolve this problem. And when I allow you to resolve the problem, you're going to go in and call on the different resources that you need. And as a result, you're not going to turn off certain things or prioritize against others, or in prioritizing, forget about others. And as a result, I'm going to end up better through that adaptation. And there are actually plants, the adaptogens that we're talking about today, that are uniquely qualified to encourage this better adaptation, enabling our bodies to adapt better. And these plants, the reason that we've discovered them is that they have been able to do that themselves. So there are plants that have been able to thrive, and so we're not just talking about survive, but they are actually able to thrive in environments where, put really simply, they just shouldn't be able to, right? So they're able, so one of my favorites is just thinking about Siberia, right? It's like a common joke, especially when I was a kid. It's like, we're going to send you to Siberia, right? It was a threat. I've actually been. It's gorgeous, but you don't see a lot of things thriving. And I think one of the things to understand there is that in order to thrive in that environment, you would have to have assessed what you have around you, and then you'd have to figure out what is already, what you've got, right, and how you can keep things better, and then turn around and be like, what can I do? And when a plant does that audit and figures it out, then it has actually, and in this particular case, we're talking about the class of adaptogens. In doing that, when it's able to thrive despite a challenging environment or a specific challenge of not having something available, what it does in our bodies is actually the same thing. So we've already seen through that mechanism that it's going to be able to do that. And in that way, by definition, an adaptogen must be safe. If it was toxic in any capacity, if it was poisonous, or if it gave off something that we couldn't have, or any of these things, it wouldn't be considered an adaptogen, because that would be a compromise to this idea of being able to thrive in the environment. So what an adaptogen by definition must do is it must help the human body adapt better to stress. Now, one of the key things here, when I talk about adapting better to stress, is that I'm explaining that it's both physical and mental. And that shouldn't come as any surprise to us. If we've had mental stresses, we should understand that they impact our body as much. We can have physical reactions. And certainly if we have physical stress, we also know that we understand and recognize there's a physical toll. But one of the things that I want us to understand right now is actually around stress. And when I've talked about that as it related to magnesium, and when I've actually just talked about stress on other webinars and in certain lessons, and certainly with evaluations that I have on the membership to evaluate your stress and the factors that could be causing your stress, one of the most important things to understand is that stress is not a bad thing for the body. The body is actually designed to experience stress so that it can hyper-focus to get certain things done. So if I'm, like today, if I'm like, stress is allowing me to shoot my adrenaline up so that I can perform hopefully really well here. Stress would be helping us, to go out and like say that it was, not the best weather conditions and we're having a drive and you're really, really focused on what you need to get done. Stress can also play out in a hyper-focus, if you have a fever, or if you're the stresses of the fever, your body's stress in order to fight the cold or the virus is going to actually give you a fever, and then you're going to like get this, I need to take things down a notch. Or similarly, if I sprain my ankle and it gets inflamed and it's red, it's like, okay, I know I need to not put weight on that. So markers of stress and stress, they're not the challenge for our body. It's that we don't turn off the stress, is that we're not adapting better to stress. Because the opposite of stress, that relaxation, is absolutely critical. Because during stress, the body is hyper-focused. When it is hyper-focused, other things are not happening. They're not being prioritized at their normal level. And as a result, if that's happening all the time, that's where we run into what we tend to think of as the negative implications of stress. The immune system not working as well, detoxification not working as well, certainly digestion not working as well. So the adaptogens are so critical really to our daily function, to helping the body adapt better daily in its management of stress, because there's no way that we can control to have no stress. I remember from early on in my media days, really just never wanting, I would always fight back against a host or anyone in a script that was saying, oh, we want to teach people to stop stressing. I'm like, you can't stop stressing. What we need to do is learn how to adapt better to stress. And when we think about stress and we think about how we can adapt better, very specifically, adaptogens work to restore the balance of the body's systems that are really impacted by stress. So obviously the whole body is impacted, but these are really at the direct impact level. So for example, I mentioned the immune system, and what we want to be thinking about is our immune system is an army. And so one of the things that adaptogens can do is actually just add more to the army. They can actually create more immune cells and help the body create more of those immune cells, but they can also help them work better. So they can, by fighting, if you ever fought, it's like, okay, I want to fight strategically. I need to be efficient. I need to not just be able to be here today and fight this battle. I might have to fight this battle for 3 weeks or 10 days, however long my cold is lasting. And that's what we want from our immune system, and that's what adaptogens can help us do. Also from our nervous system, so we want more balanced stimulation. We are great with stimulation. You can have caffeine, you can have, you can be stimulated in your day, but we need that recovery side. And so that's what our nervous system really needs to avoid always feeling like it has to fire, that it's always twitching, that it's always firing. We need more balance there. Hormones, obviously we need balance there. And there are some hormones that when they start to go out of whack, that they can increase the production of things that are more of a negative for us, right? So cortisol production we can talk about, or even within whether it's our insulin and our glucagon, or we can also look at, and that's more in blood sugar, or we can look at certainly, from a female and a male hormone standpoint, our testosterone, our progesterone, our estrogen, et cetera. And then finally, at the cellular level, our energy, right? So it's really about making sure that the body, that our mitochondria are getting the support that they need, that they're healthy, that they're able to get the oxygen that they need, that they're able to get rid of what isn't serving them well, and that's also factored in with the immune system. There's a lot about adaptogens to think about, but if we want to really simplify it, it's about learning to adapt better, and about enabling, I should say, rather than learning the body to adapt better. Okay, so there are a whole bunch of different plants that fall under the adaptogen category. And if you Google this or you read articles about adaptogens, there is some shifting, if you will. People have different definitions or what may or may not be an adaptogen. I'm going here with the ones that very specifically fit under the definition and everybody agrees to. And so the key thing here are many of them are herbs. So ashwagandha, which again, if you've heard me talk about energy and stress, ashwagandha is one of my favorite herbs, and because it allows and it supports the body's physical energy, but also cognitive function and recovery. Because as we were just talking about, those things are all interrelated, right? And from an herbal standpoint, the ability to go in and say, okay, I'm allowing you to have the physical energy that your body needs, as well as I'm going to, through that time period, as I'm allowing that physical energy to happen, I'm not going to create competition with, from a mental standpoint and also with a recovery. And so it's really about that balance that the ashwagandha is going to help with. And so, if you're somebody, like I actually, most days, except for like yesterday when I flew in and didn't get in till midnight and had to get up on East Coast time early, I usually have pretty good physical energy. On a day like today, I love me some extra ashwagandha, right? But at other times, you can think like, oh, I have good physical energy, but a reminder, but what about what's helping your body turn that energy off and that recovery? And that's where ashwagandha can be so helpful. Maca root, maca gets a very, like, you think of like the Aztecs and it's like maca, and it's just the word sounds very powerful, and that's exactly what it is. It really is something that helps us with that sustaining energy, the endurance, the strength, and also can be very helpful in hormonal balance, which can be really tricky. I'm not somebody that likes to play with adding hormones or making recommendations in that space until we're working with a practitioner, and if that is what is needed. But in that space in between, what we can achieve with maca is really helping to get better balance between what we might describe as more female and male energy, and certainly in that space from a hormonal standpoint. Also, mushrooms are adaptogens. So one of my absolute favorites is reishi. So great for your immune system. And also what I love is it's a really great supporter for, as part of your detoxification, for protecting your liver. Our liver needs so much love today, so much love. In fact, a shout out to my friend Kristen Kirkpatrick, who's a dietitian at the Cleveland Clinic, who just wrote the book Skinny Liver. I highly recommend it. And you can't have heart health and not have liver health. Like those two come part and parcel, because they really are working together in terms of the nutrients that the heart needs for better heart health. Get to it when we have a healthier liver, and the liver is processing toxins for elimination, or allowing hormones to be produced and get where they need to go. Okay, so Palo, we've arrived at your moment in this space, which is so important to me. I am so excited to have you here, and mostly I'm so excited with your current venture with REBBL, because I have known all of these benefits of adaptogens. I'm always learning new things, but I've known all about these adaptogens for a really long time. And the problem that I had was it always came down to recommending more supplements for people. And the challenge for me with that was I have things like maybe it's a probiotic, or maybe for somebody, they really do need more vitamin D, or I'm trying to get in a fish oil, or maybe it's just a multi, or maybe they just hate taking pills and powders and potions. And it was so hard for me to find great ways to be able to get in adaptogens, which indeed are super herbs. So we are in a moment going to talk about REBBL, but I wanted to, and everything that you're doing there, I wanted to first of all introduce you. I know Matt did at the beginning. And I thought it would be great if you could talk a little bit about, before you were working with REBBL, you're what I like to, my name for you is the Better Beverage Guru, but you got involved with just helping people find better beverages, and I'm curious, and certainly in the development of them. I'm curious what sparked your interest in what I'll say is helping all of us sip better.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much, and thank you, Matt. Really appreciate being on here, and thanks to all the listeners. So yeah, this starting point of the genesis of REBBL was quite simply me being unemployed, living in Santa Monica. I had started a business some years earlier and sold it, although it was a very stressful enterprise and in some ways a not very satisfying one. I was sort of taking a pause and just kind of checking in with myself, what did I want to do with my life? And I was just kind of wandering on a daily basis up and down Wilshire Boulevard, taking walks, and I popped into this herbal shop called Dragon Herbs, Ron Teagarden's store, but later Meat and others. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with the depth of the knowledge of the people there, but with the depth of the story, the history, the culture, the history of adaptogens specifically in herbal medicine is so old. It's really 3 chapters. There's sort of the 1,000-year-old side of the story, which is before the word adaptogen even was coined, and then sort of in the mid-century, the 1940s or so, Russian scientists, kind of in the middle of Cold War, competition, wanting their Olympic athletes to be the best and their workers to be the strongest and fastest, started to research traditional herbal, Siberian medicine and Chinese medicine, and found some really interesting results. And then fast forward to today, where there's all kinds of really promising clinical research happening at the best universities in the world, like UCLA for ashwagandha, just adding fuel to the fire and the interest that's been there for thousands of years, but it's really coming to a crescendo. So I started taking these herbs just out of curiosity. Loved their weird taste, loved the sort of ritual of taking them. But I did notice that no matter how sophisticated a regimen I came up with, let's say I bought a bag of maca powder. Eventually, it sort of worked its way to the back of, the cupboard and started gathering dust. Just because it takes a lot of discipline to create recipes that taste great, to really stay on top of your, daily routine. And to me, what I realized, it's just not practical to expect that the world is going to do that. The ingredients are there for kind of exceptional results. But to me, what was missing was just the ease and the convenience and the sensory delight, that needs to be part of, what life is. We can't sacrifice that to be healthy. Otherwise, why are we even here? We've got to enjoy ourselves. So that's a little bit about the beginning, and then the beverage company just became an expression of that belief that we can do so much better than we're currently doing. What happens when the most nutritious or the healthiest food you can make is also the best tasting food you've ever tasted? How does that change culture? And can that be the beginning of kind of a revolution in health, where it's not about taking a cold shower and being disciplined in the morning? It's just about enjoying life, and the choices are there, easy to make, because the creativity has been put into them to make that ritual and that daily action just a no-brainer. It's not something you got to force yourself to do. It's something you look forward to.
I love that. So these are your babies. So these were born. And I don't know if anyone has had a chance to drink REBBL. I hope so. But truly, it is, as you said, in the crazy thing, Paula, I don't know that we probably were like sitting at Ron Tea Garden next to each other, because that was I literally have paralleled your experience in terms of going in and just loving that whole piece and really making that commitment and saying okay, I'm totally going to do this. And then I would go home and realize ages later that I just had that stuff sitting in the cupboards, despite knowing its value, how great it is, and even at times how easy it could be to just add a little bit of it to something, or brew a tea or that kind of a thing. Just amazing to have it now be in something that I look forward to from a delicious beverage standpoint. So I'm curious, as we look at REBBL here, take us through a little bit of how each of the beverages is designed, in the sense of, do you come up first with the idea of, okay, I want a beverage that has ashwagandha, and so what pairs well with that, or what's the process with these?
Yes. Well, it's complex in that there's no one process for all of them, but I do like to start with the herb. I like to start with the function. I like to start with the taste of the herb itself. I'm not a person who says, okay, let's isolate our thinking about taste on one side, and then we'll go over to sort of the herb side of the counter, and we'll just put something in it, and hope it works. I like to start with the herb. I like to really get to know what it tastes like, pure. I don't mask it or anything, just taking that reishi and getting familiar with, that sort of tannic, bitter, earthy flavor that's not very good. If you just pop it right in your mouth, it's not going to be a pleasant taste. But it's a unique taste, and it's a rich, and it has depth. But what would that set of flavors go with in the food world that we do love and adore, and is a beloved flavor? And to me, if you eat raw cacao or any kind of unsweetened chocolate, you're going to get a lot of those same notes that are in the reishi. So what happens is, you start with the function and the functional herb and the benefit, but work sort of from a culinary and alchemical and magical perspective in terms of, how you see the fusing of that with an ingredient that could really be experienced as indulgent or decadent or a treat, but that still has its own health benefits, of course. And when you put them together and you do it right, I think you get some kind of magic in that it doesn't taste or feel like two things from two different worlds that were sort of put together in one bottle, and you're kind of half liking it, half, repelled by it. To me, that's not going to change culture or change, behavior or educate people. This product has to be as good as the best, chocolate milk you've ever had, and yet, it can be coconut milk based, no flavor chemicals, no gums or thickeners, basically no nonsense, just real stuff. And if you can do all that, you've got a platform for actually having a major effect on the world versus having a small esoteric brand that has maybe a strong following, but it never quite reaches the masses or mass consciousness, which is what I think that's what's going to be exciting in my lifetime, is when all these become household words. Middle of America, these are well known and understood, and I think that happens through consumer products like this. It doesn't happen through going to your doctor and having them sort of pound things into your head, which of course we need to be educated, but culture shifts on the platform, I think, of behavior and consumption of these habits and healthy products.
Couldn't agree more. Better nutrition, better be delicious. So question for you. One of the challenges that I had, in addition to the compliance factor, and I was talking about whether it's cost or whether it was just adding more to somebody's to-do list in terms of supplements, and here I was, as a dietitian wanting to have people consume more food. So again, thank you for making this vehicle an easier way. But I think one of the challenges that I had is also, it's been to explain to people that there is a big difference between seeing like the word ginseng on maybe a popcorn or on a potato chip, or even in some of the bars, versus knowing that you're getting a quality source of an adaptogen, and then also that you're getting enough quantity. And so I'm curious if you can, tell us how, I think on this part you can, but how you arrived at your quantities, and a little bit about your sourcing. But then secondly, what are some of the things that through doing that you feel like are things that people can maybe watch out for, where sort of what could be the cheats or the likelihood that something isn't going to be a better source or a great quantity. Yeah,
it's a big issue. I mean, broadly speaking, the food industry in general has really been built on the idea of how little can we give you for how much money can we get from you, right? Because food at the end of the day is business, and so it's a constant battle for sort of extracting substance, but keeping the price where it is, or even raising it. And so it's about trickery. And I don't say that obviously to just blanket the whole industry. There's a lot of ethical food companies, but historically, food as business has been a bad idea because it's been about how efficiently you can kind of undermine the substance of a product, because that's going to be your profit. So that sort of opens up the answer to this company and the sort of, I think, the future of the food business, which is, can you start with taking a stand about substance and just say that's the line in the sand? Price will fall where it may, everything else will fall where it may, but I am going to start with a simple premise, which is I want to deliver these herbs at clinical, functional levels. And if I can't do that within the price point or in the product I want to do, I'm just not even going to make the product, because it's a waste of perfectly good herbs. And a good example is like you look at like a Monster Energy, and it says ginseng big, on the top, and then you look at the back and it says 50 milligrams ginseng extract. Okay, well, this is a perfect example. Let's walk you through the watch outs. First of all, 50 milligrams is a very, very small amount. Even if it was very concentrated, it's a very, very it's a microscopic amount of substance. Now, what they don't say is, okay, well, what kind of extract, or what's the extraction ratio? This is what I like to look for in common supplements. an extraction ratio at least tells you that the person who is selling you the product or the supplement is thinking about potency. There's more you can, deeper questions you can ask, but if they're saying ginseng extract and then saying something like 10 to 1, or 5 to 1 or 20 to 1, then you can, sort of start to compare and contrast with other products. And that simple extraction ratio means, if it's 10 to 1, for every 1 pound of ginseng extract, it took 10 pounds of actual ginseng root to make that 1 pound of extract. So if someone's not giving you an extraction ratio, like on a Monster Energy, I'm going to just go on a limb here and say there could be literally no ginseng in that extract, or just literally molecules, because there's no standard of identity for what an extract can be. You could put one ginseng root in a 100-gallon vat of ethanol and water for 1 minute and take it out, and you've got ginseng extract. Now, is that anything that's worth anything to us biologically? No. So back to REBBL. So what we do is we put the amount that is going in every bottle. We put the extraction ratio, and we put the whole herb equivalent number. So we're given quite a bit of information, more than you'd find even on most supplements. And then to the substance side, this is, and this is information you can use looking at any product, not just ours. Is there a correlation between the clinical data on that exact ingredient or on, or on the category of ingredient? Is the clinical data matching the dosage of what you're doing? So a good example for us is the ashwagandha research. So much that's been done in the last 5 years at UCLA uses a standard dosage of the exact extract we use, by the way. So we don't use a different one. We use the exact one that's used in the clinical research. And we use, it's actually a little bit more than the dose that they give the people in those random placebo-controlled double-blind studies. So, because ashwagandha has no toxicity and it's not dangerous really at any level, we just kind of said, hey, let's not just even give the standard of what the clinical studies are showing. Let's actually just up it by a little bit, 25%, just to be sure. We're delivering on the promise. So if you go to PubMed or you go and research ashwagandha and look at this ingredient, and you look at the results of these studies, all of them are in alignment with the amount that you're getting in one bottle of an ashwagandha chai. So I could go into all of them, but that's just an example of the rigor that's behind this product development. This is really not just your typical food development, someone in a lab sort of trying to make something taste as good as they can for the least money. This is actually the starting place is about function and about authenticity and credibility.
Oh, I love it. And, to add to that, you touched on just for a second, like about the, wanting on the price, et cetera. One of the things that I think, because you're getting that dosage, I had somebody say to me, they're like, if I'm out and about, totally might grab this, but, I need to be, we talked about the budget earlier and sort of paying attention. And one of the things, and I love this on your website, and I have some on my website, that's great, is like, just how at home, you might cook with, you might add coconut milk like I do. I add coconut milk to my oatmeal, but I've taken, and you can add this to your oatmeal, for example, or you can do, and so when you use smaller amounts, you're still getting, because you guys have such an effective dose, you're still getting a portion of that dose, and as you get that throughout the week, if you make a serving into 3 nutrition pit stops or whatever, you're still going to be getting that dosage in, and so that's one of the things that I love about the bottle and the size and that amount that you're putting in there, is that it's the ability to spread that dosage across a couple of pit stops, which also helps our budgets a lot of times too. So I really appreciate that part. I'm wondering if there's one thing that, it might be more than one thing, but is there something really surprising, or, I mean, there's so much that one can learn about adaptogens that's, and when you just start to unpack how they operate in nature, but was there anything that you feel like really stood out that was extremely surprising to you?
Yes. this, just really came out of that curiosity that started at the Dragon Herbs shop, and kind of digging deeper and meeting some of the scientists doing the research and talking to those clinical nutritionists that work there. What seems to be the case, and this is emerging because the scientists are doing more and more work every year. What seems to be the case is that we don't know yet the limit to what the positive effects are. In other words, when you have a strong positive effect on one body system or one organ system, one part of the endocrine system, there's a high likelihood that there's a cascade of positive effects. Now, compare and contrast that to a modern pharmaceutical drug, a real mechanistic drug. I think I was researching Propecia, the other day. It's the hair loss drug, and it works by, I think it works on the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. It's an enzyme that keeps testosterone from being metabolized or converted into another more potent hormone. It's purely mechanistic. It only has one purpose, this compound, to actually inhibit this this bodily process. And any human that takes it, unless you have a genetic mutation, is going to have the exact same result. Mm-hmm. But you also have all the side effects, right? There's a zillion of them. And they're so intense, if you start actually researching it, you're going to be blown away by the side effects are often much more intense than the benefits. So those are the two ends of the spectrum. The pharmaceutical world, which focuses on mechanistic, single action, inhibitions or metabolic system changes, and an adaptogen, which is working on a broad and complex system like the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. This is the part of your endocrine system that actually manages stress. It is, and it does it through hundreds of different biological functions. So here's this natural substance that has, a couple hundred bioactive components in it, like an ashwagandha, and scientists are never going to know completely how it's doing what it's doing. We can look at the results, but we're never going to fully understand exactly how it's doing because it's so complex. But the more we test something like an ashwagandha, which the first tests they did were around stress, right? Because that's the natural thing for an adaptogen. But then they started testing memory and cognition. Oh my God, it has an effect on that, positive effect. Sexual performance, positive effect there. Sports function, stamina. You think, who would start with testing for relaxation and stress and then decide to pay, because they're expensive, for a whole clinical study on increasing stamina and energy?
Right.
It's just cognitively, you wouldn't even think to even start there. But because we're talking about substances with really sophisticated and complex actions, that possibility is there. If you take it before going to bed, you'll sleep deeper. But if you take it before going to the gym, you will work out more effectively. Mm-hmm. So this is the real classic example of the power of adaptogenics. And then, you have some ancillary effects. So if you're reducing your stress, well, guess what? They've also shown that you can reduce stress eating. So it's actually weight management, because you're not going to respond to your stress with the same behavioral patterns. So here, you've got this one substance that is known for stress reduction, and we've gotten all the way out to weight management because of the multi-pronged way that it affects the biology of the human body. So to me, that's the big surprise. And I think you're onto something good when you go out to solve one thing and you realize you've solved 10 things, as opposed to go out to solve one thing with a pharmaceutical and realize you've caused 10 other problems.
Right, and I think it's always, we do laugh or just sort of shrug our shoulders. Your point about the side effects, it's like when you see the TV commercial and it's listing like, it's pretty music, or it looks like, fun background, because they have to go through all the potential side effects, or those side effects are all, included in the paperwork that you get. And the side effects of adaptogens are absolutely amazing. Like they're, instead of thinking of side effects as a negative, what we're really talking about is the supportive effects of the body. And we had Chris Carr on our podcast, and she'll be upcoming in a week or two. And she was saying that there was a really important moment for herself where she learned that, she was not, that while certainly one of where her story began and where she focused her initial work was on helping other cancer patients not have to have the same experience that she had in terms of, getting them more quickly to resources. But she quickly saw that, and now it certainly has exploded in a really positive way. And her quote was, we need to create fewer cancer, and she's in the business of creating fewer cancer patients. And I think, to me, when I think about medication is phenomenal. And there is no question that for desired outcomes, side effects are, they are, we understand them, we know what to do about them. And medication is in the moment something that we need in that acute situation or potentially ongoing. But we can't, so they are a tool, but from an adaptogen standpoint, you're really in the preventative health space of saying, let's first make sure that the body has what it needs to do its job better, to adapt better. And that's what I always say to, any of my patients that come in, or, before it's a thyroid medication or before it's routine medication for headaches or, taking something for stress, et cetera. Let's make sure that your body has all the resources that it needs and knows how to get it, and is able to get its job done. And then we may just need, one of the things that can be advantageous about not just better nutrition, but also, incorporating in something like adaptogens, is it may also allow us to use a lesser amount of a medication or to do it for a shorter period of time. And that's the key in better health. Like that's the part of saying, like, that's how we're able to change the game. So I really appreciate that. Okay, we only have, before we jump into the Q&A, I want to just pause for a moment. Sorry, I jumped the slide too quickly. One of the key things about better health is that we tend to focus in on our own health and really how we're enabling our better health. But we cannot be better health. We cannot have better health if especially if it comes at the expense of someone else, in terms of, we need to, whether it's from an environmental standpoint or whether it's a social support or these pieces, because if you have your own better health, the only way that you can maintain that is if you exist in a bubble, right? Without, we're always interacting to other people and with other people. So walk me through, I had put up here the slide, it says not for sale. Just talk a little bit about what REBBL is doing on the, in support of others and from an environmental standpoint.
Sure. So it's a real complex topic, but to make it kind of short and direct, this company was founded in partnership with Not for Sale. Not for Sale is a nonprofit that's working to end human trafficking and basically forced labor, which is really prevalent in so many parts of the world where a lot of the economies are based on rural and agricultural farm businesses and family businesses. So we've been working with them right from the beginning. I mean, it actually sort of came out of their work in Peru and working rehabilitation in Lima, that we sort of went upstream and discovered some of the herbs that we work with now. But what I think has been instrumental and is not common, in a company today, is to have some expertise, especially for a small company, that really understands, auditing supply chains and understanding and performing risk assessment in these complex global chains of custody for ingredients. We live in a world where these ingredients, they have to come from, sometimes halfway around the world, and it's hard to have a really clear, direct understanding of what's happening, in every phase of that handling of the ingredient. So Not for Sale helps us with that, but there's a lot to do and a lot to understand to become really sophisticated in this regard. So one of the things we're doing to kind of up the ante is, and to increase long-term direct engagement with the communities that are growing these ingredients, is to actually go there, be with them on the ground, and perform sort of overall quality of life surveys and audits, and implement programs to help improve the quality of life if there's something we can actually do. In some cases there may not, but in many cases there are. And then to go back again, every year, every few years, and to re-audit, find out how people are doing, not just how much money are they making, that's a big one, but quality of life overall, education, healthcare, happiness quotient. All of these things are really what makes life work or not. So I think we're just doing what I think the future of all business will be doing, and what we'll have to do to be successful, which is just understanding your impact on people in every respect, whether it's people in the office, whether it's the people buying the products, or any person in the often opaque supply chains, that are behind all these companies that sell us our food. It's time to, kind of take that opacity away and reveal and be transparent about the truth of the touch points and the humans that are actually at the core of the value of all these products and ingredients.
Oh, I love it. Makes me so happy. I love when you say it was founded in partnership. That's not like, oh, we're giving some money, here you go, that kind of a thing. So I really appreciate that. So, okay,
well, we do give money too, quite a bit. But yes.
By the way, I shouldn't be judgmental in that way. It is amazing when a company gives money to an organization, but I think that it really spoke to me when you said in partnership, because that comes out. It's like that, that thought. Okay, so before I move into questions, which I know Matt's like, all right, questions already, but so if you were an adaptogen, if you had to pick one to be, what one would you be and why?
I always go to Schisandra berry. I think it's just one of the weirdo adaptogens because A, it's a berry, and there's no other berry adaptogens that I know of. And it's one of the only foods in the world, maybe the only natural food that contains all 5 tastes: sweet, sour, pungent, salty, and bitter. It's so interesting to me from a sensory perspective. I'm a berry freak anyway, but to taste this berry is really unusual and delicious and fascinating. It grows all over the place, so it's not one of these ones that takes all special love and special volcanic soil or something. It can really grow, almost anywhere you want to grow it. And then it supports such a wide range of body functions. It's, I think, the only substance in Chinese medicine that enters all 12 meridians from, if you know anything about Chinese medicine, about, certain, botanicals and certain, prescribed herbs are specifically for bolstering a specific meridian or certain organ system. And it has a very specific, way of doing that. Well, Schisandra, the reason it's such a, whole body tonic is it supports everything. There isn't a single organ or body system that doesn't have a beneficial effect on. So I just like it because to me it's a funny outcast, but it's also got a great story and just a great got a great sensory experience attached to it too for those who are adventurous and just like the new and unusual.
A great one at a spelling bee too. I cannot, I was asking this question and I had sent, I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask this question. And you stole mine, but I'm so glad that you did because I had like about 2 of those points down. Because I just think it's so. First of all, I love saying Schisandra, and second of all, I was with you on the berry and some of the Chinese medicine piece, but I just learned so much. So thank you, I appreciate that. Hey Matt, I know we went over in timing, but do we have any questions that people sent in, or where are we at?
Yeah, we do. In the sense of time. We have a few, but let's just answer this one. Palo did touch on it briefly, but we were sent, are there times of the day, like before a workout or after a workout, that are better for certain adaptogens?
Well, I think the answer is probably yes, but I think across the range of adaptogens, it would be hard to give you, one catch-all answer. What I would say is, because these substances are so easy on the body, they're really these don't shock the body or stress the body like medicinal substances do. The body treats them more like food. What I would say is don't be afraid to experiment with them and to really find what works for you, because that's part of their beauty, and part of their charm to me is that you can't really get it wrong. So for me, pairing it with a functional moment or a need state is, of course, an obvious place to start. And if you're doing something like ashwagandha that's known to boost stamina and to help build muscle mass, of course, doing that before working out is a great thing to do. But then again, doing it after working out to cool down, to sort of calm down. You've pushed your body. It's equally beneficial. So I think it's a great place to experiment and to be and to not kind of get too fussy about getting it right. I think you can work with your own body's feedback mechanisms and just see what feels right.
Yeah, I totally echo that. And I will say, from a practitioner standpoint, the experience that I've had is actually that at times I've had patients say to me, "Oh, I think it might be this," and they're, "Did you put me on? Was it a supplement or a tea or that?" And what we come to figure out is it's actually what they were consuming with the adaptogen that was more of a factor to the outcome or the experience that they were having. And so that, to me, I totally agree with Palo. In isolation, if you were just thinking about the adaptogen, you're going to see and it would be really cool to see how it helps you respond in different ways, or what the adaptation is in different ways, either before or after workout. What I think you have to pay more attention to is actually what you're consuming it with. So, is that, after a workout, I probably need a better nutrient balance and need to make sure I'm getting in, my proteins and things like that. Whereas before the workout, I may do great to have something that's a little bit more carbohydrate and could be a little bit have in addition to an adaptogen, could have a coffee or something else that would give you a stimulant boost. So I think it usually has more, your results usually, if you're concerned or questioning, I would look more at what you're consuming the adaptogen in rather than just the specific adaptogen.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Great. And just very quickly, because we've asked a couple of times, so as quick as you can kids take adaptogens?
Yeah.
Yes, and this is a pretty common question, and I think the consensus, as far as I can tell, and I've talked to as many people as I can get to listen to me, and I've read as many books as I can find, is the answer is yes. Now I'm not a doctor, and I don't work with patients directly, so I'm not one sort of prescribing direct action around this. But from what I gather from people who are medical practitioners who have done their research on this topic, the answer is seems to be that there's no real downside to it. That said, in some cases, I would say, do they really need it? Many kids are operating, from a deeply healthy place already. Their bodies haven't quite, had to be sort of contorted into the modern world yet. So I see targeted use of some of them, in certain cases, for relaxation, maybe for kids that are kind of on the hyper side. Might be good, but overall, I think kids probably just don't need it as much, and the adults need it more, and do it with eyes open, with some caution and clarity, and definitely do it with the advice of a good practitioner.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that one. Being the practitioner, I think in that space is that so what you're saying is exactly correct, and I jumped in and I said yes, and I think the thing that you have to think about is that. Like Paulo talked about, a child's body is actually in the process, especially a young child's body is in the process of really figuring out how it wants to work. And what we want to do during that time period is to support it so that it has the resources. So the most important thing is making sure that it gets the quality nutrients that the body needs in order to function better. When I am working with a patient directly, adaptogens like homeopathy and like nutrients are in my toolkit of supplement options long before I look into the medication space for most of my patients. But they go part and parcel with things like, evaluating a child's sleep, evaluating, how is your child breathing? Is your child, like literally, are you doing breath work or, and there are things like acupuncture and some of these others. So I think it should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. It is not something that needs to be in your child's multi or as fortified foods that you've seen for children on an ongoing basis. But I personally and professionally do not view that there could be a harm. I just don't think that there's a need on a consistent basis.
Well said.
Great.
Oh, Paulo, this was so fun. Thank you so much. I really learned a lot, and I love being able to talk about adaptogens because, as I said, I think that the more that we can understand our ability to help our body adapt better, the better we can, it really will help us with achieving our better results. And it blends in so nicely with just not focusing on that perfection or that, state that we can achieve just because we have, a medication can get us there or something like that. It's really about allowing our bodies to go where they want to go in their pursuit of better health. And it's awesome to have a delicious option of REBBL as a way to get better adaptogens in us these days too. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you both for having me, and look forward to next time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks very much. Thank you, Palo. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, REBBL. This webinar will be up on Ashley's website and YouTube channel within a week. It's Heart Health Month next month. February the 23rd is our next webinar, 2 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check back Ashley's social media for the webinar link to sign up. And we will see you then. Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.